The moment in Jesus' life in which people started to leave him the most is what happens in John chapter 6. Before John chapter 6, Jesus was extremely popular for various reasons, including that he would give good sermons and give food. So we see in John chapter 6 that the people were hungry after hearing Jesus for many hours, that Jesus took 5 loaves and 2 fish and multiplied it and gave free lunch to everybody. I think all of us would be happy as well if we also got free lunch. But then Jesus elevated the conversation, and he took the conversation in a certain direction. He says, I'm happy that you were, I'm paraphrasing, I'm happy that you were content with the 5 loaves and 2 fish. But I know you're hungry for something more. I am the only one that's here to quench that thirst. I'm the only one who's able to fill in that void in your marriages, in your struggles, in your personal issues. I'm the only one who's able to give you the remedy to life. And Jesus says, I am the what?
Light.
I am the light. Okay, very good. But in today's, very good reading. But in today's gospel, he says something very specific. I am the... He does say that, I'm the living water. You're right, that's tomorrow's gospel. You're absolutely right. But in today's gospel, he says, I am the bread of life. So he's moving, notice, he's navigating the conversation. He spent some time with them, gave them physical food, and now he's pointing them to something bigger. He's pointing them to another type of food. He tells them, I am the bread of life. For 2,000 years, the church has understood Jesus making it extremely clear the Eucharist, the divine liturgy, communion. Jesus making it super, super clear in John chapter 6. And he tells them that you have to abide in me. The gospel writer, John, writes down that when Jesus began to talk about telling people that you need to partake of me, you need to eat of me, my blood, my flesh and my blood, you know what people did? They started to get out from the pew and they left and walked out the door. Because why would Jesus begin to say that you need to eat me, basically? That's too, it sounds crazy. So people, understandably, left him. But Jesus was pointing to the reality of a mystery. We traditionally, culturally, make a big, big deal of partaking of communion only. Taking communion is essential, and it is the medicine of immortality, as what many church fathers have said. And it is essential. But I want to point out the difference between taking communion and partaking of communion. Taking communion is, I'm just wanting to kind of go through, drive through, take communion. Oh, I'm good. I took communion today. Or at least what I saw many people do when I was growing up. Oh, I have a big test coming up this week, so I need to take communion. There's nothing wrong with that, but it is not the full picture. Instead of us just taking communion, we need to push that into the fuller picture, to partake of communion, or to have communion with him. There is a big difference between the two. One is the mentality of checking a box. The other one is a way of life, is a relationship. So for me to partake of communion, you are fasting. You did not eat or drink anything this morning. You are preparing your physical body in order to take the medicine of the soul. But the drive that the church wants to give us, and the food in which the church wants to give us, is the importance and centrality of the Eucharist, communion, but also the question of, do you have communion with God tomorrow morning in quiet time with him? Do you have communion with God in the deepest, darkest issues in life? Do you partake of him? Yes, this is the mystery. There's no question. But are we partaking of him in other capacities of life? The goal is not just to take communion and then I go back living life as if I were yesterday, or I'm going back to my old life. No, I partake of him, and I want to partake of him holistically in every capacity. Because you already know this. At your last day, God is not going to ask you, did you have communion right before you die? He's not going to ask you. He's going to ask you, do you know me? For me to know him, I need to know him, yes, through the mysteries of the church, but I need to know him in every capacity. Because the flaw of the mentality of just taking communion, that it's attractive for me to take communion and then go live whatever life I want to after. It's attractive for me to do my Christian thing and then live a completely different life at work or at school or at home. That's the temptation of the theology of just taking communion. But I want us to move in the direction of partaking of communion. The importance of that holistically in every capacity. So as we do this morning, as we come and we say, I believe that this is true, mystically, this bread and this wine becomes life-giving, becomes, as we pray in the liturgy, make us worthy to partake of the holies for the purification of our soul, body, and spirit. So this is the medicine for every capacity to our life. But let it not end here. This is the centerpiece of our ancient Christian faith, coming around the table of the Lord and partaking of him and breaking bread, as we see in the book of Acts. This is the centerpiece. But don't let it be, that's it. Don't let it be the only time that we have communion with God is only through the mystery. Let us have communion with him in our relationships with each other, and our conversations with each other, what I listen to, what I watch in my private, I want to have communion with him in every capacity. So extend this mystery into other elements of life. Do not come to take communion only, but come to partake of him and continue to partake of him in other aspects. Nobody says in any type of relationship, oh, I went on a date with my spouse, or I did, so I checked a box. I did this toward that friendship, toward that relationship, and that's it. No, it's a way of life. It's embedded. It's not just checking a box. So in the same way, with this vertical relationship, do not reduce it down to taking communion, but expand it and put it into the bigger picture of I desire to partake of him through not only the Eucharist, through the mysteries, through my quiet time, through trials and hardships. I want to partake of him. I want to come to him. I want to fast, suppress the desires of my flesh, suppress that, and elevate the hunger of my soul. He has come to tell me he is the bread of life. He is the living water, and I desire to partake of that. This is the only thing that will quench our thirst. We try to fill in that void by drinking sand sometimes. But if you drink sand, you will only become more thirsty. But let us come to him and say, God, I want to be filled with you. Not only in the liturgy, but outside of liturgy as well. Come into me, fill me up. I am empty, desiring you in every capacity of my life. Let this be our prayer this morning as we meditate on the words in which John tells us in John chapter 6. I am the bread of life. He is there to fill the hunger of our souls. To him be all the glory forever and ever. Let us pray.